Let me ask you something, and be honest. When was the last time a tiny random moment totally flipped your life upside down? You know what I'm talking about. One of those, it was just a normal day stories that somehow spirals into everything changing forever. Maybe you missed a bus and bumped into an old friend. Maybe you grabbed the wrong coffee and it sparked a conversation with a stranger you never forgot. Or maybe, just maybe, it was something even smaller. Like say, a muffin. Yeah, you heard me right. Today, I'm going to tell you the true story of how two total strangers got into a heated, ridiculous, can't-take-your-eyes-off-it argument over the very last blueberry muffin at a tiny bakery in Brooklyn, and how that one moment didn't just leave crumbs on the counter. It rewrote both of their futures. Right here, right now, you're about to see how a fight over something as ordinary as a pastry turned into one of the most unexpected, heartwarming love stories I've ever told on this channel. You clicked on this video because deep down, you want to know how on earth two people can go from snapping at each other in a bakery to planning their wedding. I'm telling you straight up, you're going to get the full answer, no half-truths or clickbait. But you'll only fully understand how it happened if you stay with me all the way through. Deal? Alright, let's dive in. So picture it. A crisp Saturday morning, early spring in New York City. The kind where the air's just barely warm enough that people leave their coats unbuttoned, where the sidewalks are humming but not overcrowded, and where the scent of fresh coffee drifts lazily from corner cafes. The bakery in question? A little hole in the wall called Hearth and Crumb. If you know Brooklyn, you know the type. Chalkboard menus, rustic wood counters, a tiny bell that jingles when the door swings open. And the muffins? Legendary. Soft centers, golden tops with just the right sugar crunch, flavors that sell out faster than most people can get their sneakers on. Hearth and Crumb was the kind of place locals guarded like a secret and travelers stumbled into and never forgot. And here's where we meet Avery and Jack. You'll want to remember their names, because by the time we're done here, you'll feel like you've known them forever. Avery's the kind of person who always has a book in her tote bag, usually something underlined and dog-eared to death. She's quick with a comeback, loves indie films no one's heard of, and has this habit of tucking her hair behind her ear when she's nervous, even when no one's looking. Jack's a graphic designer with a laugh that fills the room before he even says a word. He's the guy who remembers everyone's coffee order, sends his mom postcards when he travels, and secretly watches baking competition shows even though he claims he doesn't have a sweet tooth. Two people, both just living their lives, not looking for anything more than a quiet Saturday breakfast. But fate doesn't always care about your plans, does it? At exactly 9:07 a.m., both Avery and Jack walked into Hearth and Crumb. Neither noticed the other at first. They were too busy scanning the display case, the way we all do when we've got our hearts set on a specific treat. And wouldn't you know it? Sitting there in the case, right under the soft glow of the glass, was the very last blueberry muffin. That was the muffin. The crown jewel. The bakery's best seller. And somehow, as if scripted, both Avery and Jack reached for it at the exact same moment. Now, you might think a situation like that would be easy to laugh off. A smile, a polite, "Oh, you take it," maybe even a quick joke about rock, paper, scissors. But that's not what happened here. Not even close. See, both of them had had a week. You know the kind that wears you thin, that makes even the nicest people a little sharp around the edges. Avery had just finished a brutal project at work and barely slept the night before. Jack had been on 3 deadlines and spilled coffee on his laptop less than 24 hours earlier. So when their hands brushed over that muffin, neither was in the mood to back down. What started as a quick, awkward double take spiraled into a full-on, bakery floor standoff. Words were exchanged. Pointed words. Avery insisted she'd clearly reached first. Jack countered that he'd been there first, even if she made the grab faster. The barista froze behind the counter. Other customers pretended not to stare but couldn't tear their eyes away. You know how tense those tiny public arguments get, where everyone's pretending to mind their business, but you can feel the whole room holding its breath. And here's the kicker. Both of them refused to let go of the muffin. For a full 90 seconds, neither dropped their grip. Think about that. 90 awkward, tension-filled, bakery-scented seconds. Now, I know what you're thinking. Right about now you're probably wondering, okay, but how does this turn into a wedding? Where's the twist? Stay with me. Because what neither Avery nor Jack realized was that in the middle of their ridiculous showdown, something subtle had shifted. Their argument, as sharp as it was, wasn't mean. It was lively. It sparked. Banter started replacing bickering. Somewhere between "I saw it first" and "not a chance," a spark lit up that neither of them could deny. The other customers noticed it first. You know how you can sense when two people have chemistry, even if they don't? That's what was happening here. Eye contact got a little longer. Smiles started sneaking into their voices. And by the time the barista, with a shaky laugh, offered to cut the muffin in half just to break the stalemate, something else had already been baked into the mix. Not just blueberry and sugar. Something that neither of them had walked into Hearth and Crumb expecting that day. Now listen closely here, because this is where you and I start getting to the heart of why you clicked on this video. It's not just because you wanted a quirky little bakery story, is it? No. It's because deep down, we all want to believe that real, messy, imperfect moments can still lead to something beautiful. You're here because you wonder, could something that seems like a disaster actually be the start of something amazing? And I'm here to tell you, you're about to see exactly how that happened for Avery and Jack. You'll hear how that muffin standoff didn't just end with two people walking away in frustration. It turned into a phone number scribbled on a napkin, a first date neither of them expected, and a love story that's sweeter than any pastry in that glass case. And don't worry, I'm not going to leave you hanging or drag it out longer than I need to. By the time this video is over, you'll know every twist, every laugh, every stumble that got them from that muffin to that proposal. But here's the catch. You won't fully appreciate the why unless you see how it all unfolds, step by step. Because the real story isn't just about the muffin. It's about timing, about two stubborn hearts colliding at just the right second, about how sometimes arguing with a stranger is the universe's weirdest way of introducing you to the love of your life. And trust me, what happened next is the last thing either of them, or you, would expect. Let's just say, when they finally sat down to split that muffin, they didn't realize who else had been watching, and how that one witness would end up changing everything. Of course, here's the seamless continuation from where we left off, deepening the conflict, weaving in subplots, raising the stakes, and keeping everything human, immersive, and primed for retention with naturally integrated trending YouTube keywords like unexpected love story, twist of fate, relationship goals, meet cute, viral moment, and modern romance. No choppy phrasing or headings. All rich paragraphs as you asked. Let's keep building. When Avery and Jack finally sat down at one of those wobbly little wooden tables in the corner of Hearth and Crumb, neither of them knew it yet, but the muffin argument had already started to fade into the kind of inside joke that only two people with fast sparking chemistry could understand. They split it cleanly down the middle. Well, as clean as a soft, crumbly muffin will allow. And somewhere between bites and glances, the banter that had started shop turned warm, even playful. Jack made a joke about shared custody of baked goods, and Avery countered with mock seriousness that if they were going to co-parent muffins, they'd need ground rules. It should have been just that. Two strangers nursing coffee and shared carbs, maybe walking away after a brief meet cute, each telling their friends later about the weird little bakery thing that happened. But life, especially in stories like this, rarely sticks to the script. Neither of them noticed the woman sitting 2 tables away. Gray cardigan, notebook open, laptop blinking softly. Her name was Elena Vasquez, and if you follow viral videos or trending relationship podcasts, that name might ring a bell even before I tell you the rest. Elena was a content creator with a sharp eye for human connection. The kind who turned chance encounters and real-life romance into social media gold. What Avery and Jack didn't know was that she'd been filming casual B-roll for her series called Unexpected Love Stories, when she caught their entire muffin standoff on camera. The brushed hands, the pointed words, the barista's awkward suggestion, and most importantly, the softening that unfolded like a slow burn right in front of her lens. Without even thinking twice, Elena snapped a short, clean video clip of the pair laughing together over their split muffin, captioned it, "From bakery enemies to brunch buddies?" You love to see it. Hashtag meet cute, hashtag relationship goals, hashtag twist of fate. And hit upload to her 2.7 million followers on Instagram Reels and YouTube Shorts. By the time Avery and Jack finished their coffee and exchanged numbers. Yes, Jack finally caved and scribbled his digits on the back of an old receipt. The video had already started to snowball. Comments poured in faster than Elena expected. Viewers were hooked on the organic, unscripted charm of the scene. They weren't just invested in the clip, they were invested in the story. Hundreds of people wanted updates, rooting hard for these two strangers they'd never met. Hashtags like hashtag bakery love story and hashtag modern romance started trending in local feeds. Little did Avery and Jack know, their simple Saturday coffee chat was turning into an internet sensation faster than they could take their next sip. Now, Here's where the stakes take a sharp, unexpected turn. You might think viral fame would be flattering. Fun even. And sure at first, when friends started texting Avery, "Is this you?" with the link to the video, and Jack's co-workers slid their phones across their desks with knowing grins, it felt harmless. Funny. Even charming. They exchanged nervous texts about it, laughing at the comments. But it didn't take long before the attention grew a little too big to ignore. Paparazzi level? No. But let's just say, the next time they met for brunch, more than one person was pointing phones discreetly in their direction. A local news blog wrote a fluff piece, "Brooklyn's Bakery Sweethearts. How one muffin sparked a viral love story." Suddenly, Avery's ultra-private world felt cracked open, and Jack, easygoing as he usually was, started fielding DMs from strangers asking intimate questions about their relationship goals status. Here's the thing about viral moments. You don't get to choose how people interpret them. And as much as people love an unexpected love story, they love drama just as much. As their budding connection deepened privately, late-night phone calls, long walks in Prospect Park, shared playlists, they found themselves tangled in a very public narrative neither of them had signed up for. Speculation exploded. Were they really a couple? Was it staged? Were they faking it for clout? Comments turned from sweet to sharp almost overnight. Elena, sensing opportunity, and to be fair, under pressure from her rapidly growing audience, reached out to both of them with an offer to tell their story properly on her podcast, promising control over the narrative. Jack was intrigued. Avery, wary. The tension between them simmered, not over muffins anymore, but over how to navigate this weird viral fame neither of them had asked for. That's when the twist hit. Just as they were starting to figure each other out, teetering on the edge of something real and vulnerable, Avery discovered something that rattled her to her core. Buried deep in the comments section of Elena's original video was a message from a username she recognized instantly. Her ex. A long ago, deeply complicated, barely healed ex who, it turns out, happened to be Jack's old college roommate. That's right. Without either of them realizing it, they were already connected before that bakery moment. Not just by fate, not just by muffins, but by a shared past neither of them had spoken about yet. And now, thanks to the viral clip, that ex wasn't just watching from the sidelines. He was actively inserting himself back into the picture, sliding into both of their DMs, hinting at secrets and half-truths that neither Avery nor Jack were prepared to unpack under the glaring spotlight of online attention. Let that sink in for a second. You started this video thinking you were going to hear about a sweet, quirky bakery meet-cute that blossomed into a wedding. And yes, you're still going to get that love story. But what makes this one unforgettable isn't just the muffin, or the banter, or even the viral moment. It's the way real life, with all its messy entanglements, snuck into what seemed like a simple twist of fate. And if you think the story's intense now, trust me, you'll want to see what happens when past wounds collide with newfound feelings, and two people have to decide whether a love born in front of millions of eyes is strong enough to survive behind closed doors. Stick with me. You're about to find out exactly what Avery did when she saw that comment, and how Jack reacted when the truth about their shared history came crashing into their carefully built, muffin-sweet connection. It's not what you think. And it's definitely not what they expected. Avery sat frozen on the edge of her bed that evening, her phone glowing dimly in her hand, the weight of the discovery sinking deeper with every second. The username wasn't just familiar, it was unforgettable, almost seared into her memory like an old scar. Mark Halcyon, 84. Mark, the ex who had unraveled her world 3 years earlier in ways she'd worked hard to bury. The same Mark who had once lived with Jack during those messy, chaotic college years at NYU. Back when boundaries blurred easily and friendships twisted faster than anyone could untangle. Seeing his name pop up beneath that seemingly innocent video felt like a rug being yanked from under her carefully balanced life. His comment was cryptic but unmistakably pointed. Funny how small the world is. Wonder if Jack remembers everything that happened back then. Maybe your viewers would be interested too. #throwback #not so random. A comment like that doesn't just sit still. It festers. It planted seeds of doubt and anxiety that Avery couldn't shake, and as much as she wanted to believe it was an empty provocation, her gut told her Mark wasn't bluffing. Meanwhile, Jack was oblivious, for now. He was pacing around his apartment, scrolling through the endless flood of notifications pouring in from YouTube Shorts, Instagram Reels, and even TikTok, where Elena had clipped and reposted the video under the trending tags #unexpectedlovestory and #modernromance. The exposure was snowballing into something none of them had predicted, and part of Jack was riding the wave with ease. His friends were cheering him on, his DMs were blowing up with playful messages about relationship goals, and his phone buzzed non-stop with local media outlets reaching out for interviews. Yet underneath the buzz, something gnawed at him. Avery had gone quiet. For a woman who had sparred so quickly and openly with him just days earlier, her silence in the face of all this attention was disconcerting. Jack, ever the optimist, assumed she was overwhelmed by the sudden viral fame. What he didn't know as he queued up an innocent text checking in on her, was that Avery was already spiraling through memories of Mark. Memories that cast long dark shadows on what had felt like a bright new connection. The stakes jumped another level when Elena, sensing the story's heat hadn't yet peaked, reached out again with a proposition that neither of them had anticipated. She wanted to host a live sit-down interview with both Avery and Jack together, streamed across her YouTube channel, podcast, and Instagram Live simultaneously, marketed under the catchy title From Muffin to Marriage? The internet's favorite love story, unfiltered. She promised full control over their narrative, the chance to set the record straight, and more importantly, the opportunity to capitalize on their viral moment before it fizzled out. The allure of clearing the air, plus the subtle pull of leaning into their growing fanbase, was tempting. Jack thought it sounded harmless, even fun. Avery, however, felt her chest tighten. The idea of going live, knowing Mark might be lurking in the digital crowd, ready to drop bombs she wasn't prepared to handle, made her stomach churn. But the twist didn't end there. Mark wasn't content with sly comments anymore. Late that night, Avery's inbox pinged with an old photo attachment, grainy but unmistakable. It showed Jack and Mark, side by side at some long-forgotten college party, arms slung over each other's shoulders, grins wide and carefree. Attached was a short message. Maybe ask him why he ghosted me back then when everything blew up. People don't change as much as you think. Just a heads up before you go live. The implication was clear and gut-wrenching. Whatever messy fallout had unraveled Avery and Mark's relationship back in those tangled NYU days, Jack hadn't been a distant bystander. He had been tangled in it too, maybe deeper than he'd ever let on. And now Avery faced a choice: confront Jack quietly and risk fracturing the fragile connection they were building, or go forward with a live interview, where the truth might crack open on its own under millions of watchful eyes. What's more, Elena's teaser promo for the live broadcast was already gaining traction. With sharp-cut montages of their bakery encounter, overlaid text like, "What really happened after the muffin?" Hashtag meet cute or manufactured. And catchy music trending on YouTube Shorts, subscribers were doubling by the hour. Comments flooded in demanding to hear the real tea. Words like drama, love triangle, and betrayal shot up in searches linked to their names. Viewers weren't just rooting for a love story anymore. They were sniffing out controversy, the kind that makes a video go viral not just locally, but globally. You and I both know how fast the internet flips from adoration to obsession when even the tiniest hint of a scandal slips into frame. By the time Avery and Jack met face-to-face again in the quiet, dimly lit corner of a late-night diner, far from the charming bakery where it all began, the air between them felt heavy, taut like stretched wire. Jack, ever earnest, slid into the booth with that easy smile, but it faltered when he saw Avery's guarded expression and the printed-out photo sitting flat on the table between them. He didn't speak first. He couldn't. The moment she slid that photo toward him, her eyes steady but stormy, the whole foundation they'd built over muffins and midnight texts trembled. For the first time since their fingers brushed over pastry crumbs, Jack looked unsure, caught between confession and deflection. And here's where it gets real. The next words out of his mouth weren't what anyone would have expected, least of all Avery. He didn't deny knowing Mark. He didn't try to dodge the photo or smooth things over with charm. Instead, his jaw tightened, his eyes flickered with something close to regret, and quietly he said, "I've been hoping for years I wouldn't have to talk about what happened that night. But if we're going to survive this, you deserve everything. Even the parts that might make you hate me." That's where I'm going to leave you hanging for a moment. Because in the next part of this story, not only will you find out exactly what Jack meant by that night, you'll see how choices made in the past don't just echo quietly. They roar back when you least expect them. And if you think a muffin was the biggest twist in this story, you haven't seen anything yet. Stay with me, because what happens next is going to turn everything you thought you knew about Avery and Jack upside down, and trust me, you'll want to see how it all plays out. Jack didn't look away as Avery's stare hardened. He took a breath that seemed to scrape against old regrets buried deep, The kind of breath someone takes before stepping into fire, and then finally, with his shoulders squared and his voice low but unwavering, he spoke. Back in those tangled NYU days, Jack and Mark had been more than just roommates. They'd been tight, bonded over late-night projects, crammed classes, and the electric chaos of early adulthood. What Avery had never known was that the night her relationship with Mark imploded, the night she confronted Mark over betrayal, secrets, and lies, Jack had been right there in the thick of it. He wasn't just a silent observer. He was the one who'd stumbled on evidence that Mark had been unfaithful, screenshots and messages Mark had carelessly left on a shared laptop. Jack, faced with the moral choice of whether to protect his friend or come clean to Avery, had made a decision that haunted him ever since. He hadn't gone directly to Avery, no. Instead, he confronted Mark behind closed doors and, after a heated fight that shattered their friendship, he walked away from both of them. He ghosted the chaos, cut ties, and buried the mess, believing that silence was safer than stepping into the crossfire. And in doing so, Avery had been left to piece together the ruins on her own, never knowing Jack had been the hidden hand who set it all in motion. As Jack laid all of this bare across the diner table, Avery sat motionless, her breath shallow, her mind racing. The past she'd thought she'd boxed away came rushing back with dizzying clarity. Yet layered beneath the shock was something unexpected. A strange, quiet understanding. Jack wasn't just some random man she'd argued over a muffin with. He was a man who had been orbiting her story for longer than she knew, someone who had once tried, in his own flawed and fearful way, to do right by her when everything around them crumbled. And now, all these years later, the universe had pulled their threads back together. Not as some random twist of fate but maybe as unfinished business finally surfacing to be healed. Avery's jaw unclenched slightly, her hand loosening on the photo between them. Jack, with a vulnerability rawer than anything she'd seen in him before, finished simply. I should have spoken up back then. I didn't. But I'm not running now. Whatever you want to do next, I'm here. Fully. The climax hit its peak when, 2 nights later, they sat side by side under the harsh, exposed lights of Elena's studio. The live interview buzzed with energy, thousands of viewers pouring into the stream from trending notifications pushed out under tags like #ViralLoveStory, #RelationshipDrama, and #TruthRevealed. The comment section scrolled so fast it blurred. Elena, ever the poised host, set the scene masterfully, recounting the viral bakery moment and teasing the deeper story no one saw coming. And then, Avery, with a calm steadiness even she didn't know she possessed, told the truth. Not the sanitized, polished version but the whole messy, human-centric reality. She laid bare her past with Mark, her discovery of Jack's old involvement, and most importantly, how both of them had chosen honesty, even if it arrived late and battered. Jack backed her with unflinching sincerity. The audience, primed for scandal, fell unexpectedly silent, riveted not by drama but by the rawness of two people choosing vulnerability over performance. Here's the unexpected twist that left everyone floored. Midway through the live stream, as Avery spoke, Elena received a real-time message from Mark himself. Against her better judgment, she flashed it on screen. But instead of the bombshell accusations or messy receipts viewers had braced for, Mark's message stunned everyone. It was an apology. Public, unguarded, and unprompted. They both did more for me back then than I deserved. I was the one who wrecked it. They've earned this. Let them have it. #closure. It was the kind of plot turn no one anticipated in an age where social media often fuels conflict rather than resolves it. The comment section exploded, not with outrage but with support. Keywords like forgiveness, closure, and real love trended as thousands of viewers expressed admiration for the rare sight of genuine accountability playing out live. By the time the stream ended, Avery and Jack were no longer just the couple who argued over a muffin. They were a viral phenomenon for all the right reasons. Their story wasn't polished or perfect, but it struck chords deep in anyone who had ever wrestled with complicated pasts and the hope of second chances. In the weeks that followed, their relationship blossomed under far less scrutinizing eyes. They didn't cash in on brand deals or reality TV offers that predictably flooded their inboxes after the interview. Instead, they quietly leaned into each other, building something offline, away from hashtags and viral clips. A year later, standing in the very same bakery where it all began, Jack proposed with a ring tucked inside a small pastry box, and Avery, smiling wide and sure, said yes as their closest friends cheered from behind flour-dusted counters. If you've stayed with me this far, you know now why this story went viral, not just because of a quirky meet-cute or trending keywords like twist of fate and relationship goals, but because at its heart, it's about something far more universal. It's about forgiveness, about how sometimes the people meant for us circle back into our lives not by perfect timing but by messy, imperfect roads that still somehow lead to love. It's about second chances that actually mean something. And maybe, just maybe, it's about how even the smallest moment, like an argument over the last muffin, can ripple into something you'll carry for the rest of your life. Thanks for watching, and if their story left you with something real, drop a comment below. Let's talk about the times life surprised you too.